The last episode we did was internal weapons, and it was so rich and so filled with information, and I got such riveting and fascinating answers from Sister Denise that we decided to take this up further and call this episode Internal Weapons Part 2. So thank you for joining us, and I do hope that you are taking notes, because this is such personal relevance to anyone who is on a spiritual journey. Sister Denise, thank you for staying with us for 2 episodes. This particular topic has such personal relevance for a woman or anyone on a spiritual path. I think most of us do not take the time and effort to do the internal work that's necessary to meet life head on. We leave ourselves at the mercy of our negative traits and at the mercy of life. And what you shared earlier in part 1 of this episode is that one should continually develop oneself and come up with new arsenal. I would like you to give us more practical examples of what somebody who's armed looks like on the inside.
Well, one of the weapons is the bows and arrows. And your bow is symbolic. You know the rainbow with all the colors like this? So this is called the bow of Indra. And in the mythology, the bow of Indra could not be bent except by a great hero. And the great hero is the one who doesn't have ego. Your bow is, the ego. So you have to bend your ego. You have to have humility. That humility is an incredible weapon. And when you may be attacked by any situation or people or whatever it happens to be, you have to be able to send back an arrow. Now, an arrow is not an arrow designed to kill somebody, but it is a point. It is a statement. If you have great humility and your words really strike the heart of another person, it totally can defuse a situation which is otherwise very difficult because you're under attack.
Sister Denise, you have almost an annoying way of making all of this sound so easy. I do know that you've been doing this for decades, so what I'm seeing and what the viewer is seeing is decades of intense spiritual work.
You can compare it with martial arts, and the person who is very skilled in their martial art, you see them doing it. It's so easy. It's so beautiful. Mm. And you just think, oh yeah, it looks easy, I could do that. And no, you can't. Because it's very deceptively simple, deceptively easy. And I think the key thing is what happens to you when you start Rajyoga, the path that I apply in my life. You actually get given at the beginning a kit of weapons. The power of tolerance, the power of discernment, the power of judgment, the power of cooperation, the power to face, like this, many, many powers, the power of silence, the power of transformation. And you say, well, that's easy.
Okay, hold on. You're talking about an invisible kit.
Yes, it's powers that you learn about, that you hear about, that are described to you, and you have to take possession of them and get skilled in them. You may have some period of time when you're meditating, some period of time when you're studying, and then there's parts of your day where it's the lab, and anything can happen in your relationships, in how you go about your day, which will provoke some or another negative characteristic, or some inner demon will jump out and do its thing. You have to immediately grab whatever is the right weapon from your kit. If you take the wrong weapon, won't work. You have to get the right one, and you have to set it right and shoot it right, and all this very, very fast.
If I get angry and there's somebody standing in front of me who has provoked my anger, I don't think, hey, you remember I started to meditate a couple of years ago and decided I want to be a peaceful person? Pause that. Listen, you. Okay? You express your anger.
There you are in that situation. It's not that you meditated a couple of years ago. You meditate regularly. This energy will rise in you, which doesn't take long to come out of your eye. But you have to catch it before it gets very far and quieten it down.
And that's not the same as suppressing.
No.
It's quietening it down.
You quieten it down, and you take that energy, detoxify it, and use it as as part of your weapon to accomplish whatever you want to accomplish in that situation, which means you don't react, you respond. Your response is a return shot to the one that provoked you. So, you're playing tennis here.
Sister Denise, the vast majority of us are not aware that this is me and these are my weaknesses and I'm more powerful than my weaknesses. Almost every one of us secretly enjoy our weaknesses. We do. Okay, because we get something out of it. When someone has wronged you and you lose it with them and you express yourself and that person walks away all contrite, if in that scenario you feel good that you stood up for yourself. If you fear something and then you see the object of your fear and you run like hell, you think, oh God, thank God, I'm now safe. You get something out of it. That's why we return to our weaknesses. This is human nature. Now you're offering a solution. I'm not saying your solution is not legitimate. I'm just saying it is hard. It's hard.
It's definitely hard. Most people would say it's completely impossible. And I think what we're saying is it's possible. It's hard if you don't do it the right way. But if you do it the right way, with patience, with persistence, you become very skilled. I mean, it really is a matter of acquiring the skill of learning the art and science of transforming these negative things, these big monsters into little mice, into something which has control over you, into something that you use for your own purposes. I think in spirituality we give a lot of importance to relationship, because what we want is to be in harmony. So if someone comes along and is very provocative, I don't have to get provoked. I can turn the situation around and make it the way I want it to be.
Is that our weakness, Sister Denise, that we allow ourselves to be provoked so easily, that we are so susceptible to triggers from the external?
Well, yes, I would say.
That should be our point of greatest protection, to know your vulnerabilities.
Well, I think it's very important to be able to be vulnerable, and you can be vulnerable when you're really strong, because you don't have to be defensive. Defensive is when you're weak.
You've silenced me again, because most people don't know that.
Well, let's look at ego, because ego is something that we're always talking about. Ego is the big problem, the big monster. In spirituality, we often say that basically all the vices come down to ego or false ego, false pride, where you operate in such a way that other people are harmed and you go into debt. You want to be in your power. Your negative characteristics, you don't actually have to call them negative characteristics. You can call them energies. And that energy, either it controls you or you control it.
This is where I want to stop you, Sister Denise. We do not know where I end and my weakness begins. We think I am my weakness. I am my weakness, which sometimes we do not even consider as a weakness. I am angry is one and the same. I am angry. Part of who I am, my identity.
Well, when you practice spirituality, you're also studying, and you have to decide whether what you're studying is true. So, if you study that, my identity is I'm a pure, peaceful, powerful, loveful, blissful being of light, and the dark side of that is greed, anger, lust, attachment, ego, whatever, negative characteristics. Do you want to go along with this description of what you are? Because if you say, well, I'm a peaceful, disturbed soul, or I'm a arrogant, humble being, you've got something which is a disconnect here. So you say, you have to choose. I choose to be what I really am, and I choose not to be what I'm not, because the anger, the lust, the attachment, all the things that put the person into debt when you act on them, all the things that take away your self-honor and self-dignity, all the things that cause harm to everybody else and ultimately yourself. These things are your things that you want to neutralize, right? And you neutralize them by altering the way those energies are operating. And the way those energies are operating is on the, you can say, force of darkness. So you connect yourself with the force of light. You take those dark things and make them light. You can take anger and turn it into determination. See, when it's anger, you're out of control. When it's determination, you're the master, and you can direct that energy exactly where you want it to go, how far you want it to go, and it doesn't have to harm someone. The thing about when something is a demon is it controls you.
A person who has an arsenal of internal weapons must be extremely well equipped. It's like carrying a whole lot of swords and knives with you internally all the time, with the intention of not harming yourself and not harming others. Isn't that a weird way to live?
Well, there is this concept of spiritual warrior, and in the world we have people who develop themselves as warriors. You have the samurai, who is going to use his skill to cause the aggressive people to be removed and protect the people who need to be protected. And you have your military specialist, your Navy SEAL, something like this, who has to be very, very fit and very competent in the use of the latest, greatest weapons. And sometimes I will take a look at the weaponry that people use in the military, and you can, you have night vision sights, you can shoot accurately to 2 kilometers away. You have to have a whole variety of sort of offensive and defensive weapons that are applied in all kinds of different situations. And even you have one that will take yourself out if you get in an impossible situation. And I mean, across the years where wars have been going on for several thousand years, and in the process there's always been a group of people who are specialist warriors. And, among your Native American Indians, the bow and arrow and other weapons are there. Not long ago I was visiting the Maasai in Africa. They have very good, very simple weapons, but extremely good, balanced wooden objects which they will use as a weapon, clubs and all of this. And as long as you're really, really skilled in your weapon and you understand the terrain and the enemy and whatever, you function as a good warrior. And a spiritual warrior is one who takes on the possibility of taking out the force of darkness, the force of evil, and another way that it can get at you is in the mind.
Whoa, you're scaring me now. What does that mean?
Well, that's the thing. You can get some very scary, sort of shadowy things that come along to make you crazy, and you have to have weapons for that too. You have to be so able to be still and stable and not deceived by, woo-woo type of things that happen in the mind. Or you could be attacked by, a heavy wave of depression, have to be able to pull yourself out of that. There's all kinds of things that can happen on the inside, or things that can happen in the world around you. And the spiritual warrior experiences all these different sorts of things that can happen to anyone, and you learn to hone your skills by handling it, managing it, because you're being tested by life all the time. You might even be tested by God, you see, because if you want to be a spiritual warrior, if you want to take out the negativity within yourself at every level and really be pure, clean, a person of absolute integrity, with absolutely no malice, no jealousy, absolutely humble, a perfect person. This is possible. And of course it takes a great deal of attention, care, study and practice to achieve that. But at any level that you do it, you're going to be better than you were before. And we're interested in the future. And what we're interested in is a future where people are naturally harmonious, where people are not afraid of each other, where death is not something that you get threatened with, where you can just manage everything so well that you are that you live in the kind of future that we would like to live in. But to get there, you have to deal with the stuff that's presenting itself now, which is all your dark side. That's what it's about.
Sister Denise, when you are facing all of these demons that you so well enunciated, what is it about you? What do you say to yourself to give yourself the impetus to go on, irrespective of how scary the demons are?
I would say I know for sure that God is with me at every second. I know for sure that I can make it. Whatever, because for sure that everything I do is in order to be right with myself. So you move along step by step, little bit at a time, you start to clock up a lot of experiences. Every so often you have a brush with death. And then you realize you can actually answer the question, am I or am I not afraid of death? And it's good to know whether you are or not. And you never will know unless you've come up against it, right here. And so having had a few brushes with death, I can safely say to myself, I know I'm not afraid of death. So that one's out of the way. And then you go forward one thing after another. I think it is to do with faith and fear. As your biggest enemy is fear. You know, with fear, you can either be a coward, which a lot of people are, or you take a step of courage. There's no alternative. It's either you are a coward, which means that you can't face yourself, or you are courageous, which means you face whatever it is. And this, one after another, facing what comes, facing fears, every time they come, it makes you more and more and more powerful. And when you do something out of cowardice, it makes you weaker and weaker and weaker. So you just find yourself in this choice. It's one or the other. You get powerful or you get weak. What do you want?
Well, there you have it. That's been another riveting half an hour listening to Sister Denise share her knowledge and experience of how one overcomes one's demons. It is very obvious that Sister Denise did not paint a romantic picture of one's journey through this, because it requires a lot of strength, a lot of courage, and day-to-day work on yourself. And I think the message that I received from today's talk is the question that you have to ask yourself is, am I worth it? Do you think that you're worth the effort? And if you do, and when you do, it is then that you will take up arms against your own demons and equip yourself to face life head on. So thank you, Sister Denise, for a very powerful message. And I do wish you everything of the best on your own spiritual journey. And I hope to see you equipped fully with your internal weapons. Take care and goodbye.